much for coming in and being seated right on time. Welcome to the second edition of CMO Inflect. It's all about Chief Marketing Officers. My name is Visvanathan. I'm the Executive Director for TI Silicon Valley, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's proceedings. Before we get going with the actual content of the day, I would like to take a couple minutes to talk about TI and what we do. So, actually, through a show of hands, if you can let me know how many of you have attended a TI event before? Okay, so the majority. That's great. So, for those who haven't, I'll just take a minute to say TI has been around for the last 26 years, and our mission is to foster entrepreneurship. We do it primarily through 4 pillars or 4 dimensions: education, mentoring, networking, and funding. So we do a lot of education for entrepreneurs, both technical education as well as business education. So we hold events like this that actually talk about marketing and convey the sort of state-of-the-art excuse me, in various domains. Mentoring is a huge piece of what we do. We have a very large network of highly accomplished, what we call charter members, and these are serial entrepreneurs, high-tech executives that want to give back. And so their main mission is to coach and guide and mentor new entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs in what it takes to start a company, build it, grow it, etc. We also do networking throughout the year through multiple different events like this one, culminating in our annual event, which I'll talk to you in just a second. And networking is a wonderful mechanism for most of you, most of the attendees, to meet both old friends and new contacts. So you find your co-founders here, you find people to hire, you find new business contacts, new customers, all that good stuff. The last pillar we have is funding. So in a limited sense, we're not like a VC or a private equity firm, but we do provide promising startups with access to funding through what we call the TI Angels. The TI Angels is a global network of angel investors that do invest in promising startups. So if you have any interest, you have friends that are starting companies, please direct them to tiangels.org. That said, I also want to mention to you that TI Silicon Valley, which I'm a part of, is actually part of a global group. So over time, we have grown to over 60 chapters in over 18 different countries. And we have in excess of 2,500 charter members. These are the ones that give back. And we count about 25,000 members in our global ecosystem. We also reach over 500,000 entrepreneurs, executives, engineers, and the like on a global basis. And we continue to grow. So one last thing I want to mention is our annual conference is coming up pretty soon. It's actually May 10th and 11th in Santa Clara, May 10th and 11th, 2019 in Santa Clara. And we would welcome all of you to come and take part and be part of the excitement and meet new people, new entrepreneurs, as well as listen to state-of-the-art in multiple different domains. So with that said, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Anand Akela, who's the head honcho for the day. Take it away, Anand.
Thank you, guys. Good morning. Very good. It's a Friday morning, and at 10:30, there were like 12 people, and I thought, okay, we'll see how the whole thing goes. But good to see all of you over here. This is the second event that we are doing, and the focus area is marketing, starting from how we start talking about a product, solution, or service, how we convert them into a lead, an opportunity, and the whole life cycle. Customer advocacy, I'll talk about the content in a little bit, but the complete marketing life cycle and how it's engagement with the revenue, RevOps, how it engages with sales, and different part of the team. So my job is pretty easy today, just to thank my partners in crime. So you could see here, Christina, organizing team members, can you please raise your hand? Perfect. So Christina, Dennis, Paul, Wamsi, and Max, they have helped us put together, all of us are volunteers, right? So my day job, I work for a startup, do product marketing, and pulling this together is not that easy. And you will see that our agenda, the content is really good. I'll talk about that. Staff. So TIE is a nonprofit. All of the volunteers help organize it, but it cannot be done without the staff members. So you heard Jed talk about staff members. Can you please raise your hand? Let's acknowledge them because they are the people behind it. Some of them are still checking in people, so thank you. And this event cannot happen without sponsors, right? So thank you to our sponsors, Can-Am, Conversi, Morgan Stanley, and Funnel Cake. And you'll be listening to at least a couple of them later today in different sessions. So thank you, sponsors. And media partners, NTV USA, Siliconeer, and Indica News. What I'm going to do is very quickly walk you through the content. So we are starting with, I'm going to talk about our surprise guest here who will be kind of leading us for the rest of the event. But we'll have a keynote from industry experts, someone who really kind of defined marketing automation at Marketo and Engagio now. We'll hear from him. Then we have a panel of CMOs talking about what's the role of CMO in the digital world. And then we talk about AI-driven after lunch. We'll talk about AI-driven marketing. We'll talk about ABM, account-based marketing and metrics. And then unmarketing to developers. I work for a company that markets to developers. That is not that easy. So we have pretty interesting term we came up with, unmarketing to developers. So we'll do that. We'll talk about RevOps. Again, we'll give enough time for breaks so that you could network, one of the goals that our organization has. And then finally close it with the keynote, Stairway to Customer Heaven. And that will be really good. Our rockstar performer will be delivering that keynote. So with that, I am about to introduce our MC for the rest of the event. But before that, if you have questions, you could raise your hand. Someone will come up with an index card and a pen, and you could ask your questions to the panelists. Folks in the room who have the index card, the volunteers, can you raise your hand? So they're in the back of the room, and they could come to you. You could write down your questions, and we'll pass it on to the moderators of the panels or the speakers, so you could ask the question that way. Okay, so with that, let me introduce Jeffrey Hayzlett. Kodak moment. How many of you have heard of Kodak in this world? Yeah, Jeffrey, you must have heard. So he contributed, he was their CMO for many, many years. You may have seen him as a judge on Apprentice with Trump. He's the author of multiple books. He is on Prime TV right now, hosts a business program where he interviews and talks about business, different phases of business. And he is a marketing leader. I mean, he knows marketing, he breathes marketing, so no one could be better than him to really MC that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce and invite Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Good to see you. How many of you were here last year? Just by a show of hands. Okay, so a lot of new folks, which is great. It's a pleasure to be with you here today and to talk a little bit about you. I'm from, I always like to start off with explaining that I'm from South Dakota. Anyone here from South Dakota? Never is. I always like that. It's like, oh, you can laugh about that. That's funny shit right there. That's funny. This is what we'd call population density right here in the room. You'd be like the 18th largest city in South Dakota. So, in fact, tonight I'm going back. I'm actually jumping on a red eye to get back because I'm hosting 60 CEOs over the next 6 days pheasant hunting, which is, we're one of the few states in the country that actually hunts our own state bird, which is kind of an interesting thing. And then being with you guys as a CMO, being with you reminds me of the first time I met my wife's great-grandmother. Now, my wife is 5'1", about 105 pounds, and I am 6'3", 200 and some odd pounds. And the first time I met Grandma Agnes, she's 4'11". So she's smaller than Tammy, and she looked up at Tammy, and she looked way up at me, she looked at Tammy, looked way up at me, and she turned back to Tammy and said, "Isn't he a little bit bigger than necessary?" So, kind of give you my feeling with you guys. And so being with so many great CMOs in the room, I kind of feel like that. And then it's always good to be at a TIE event. Probably, I do about 160 keynotes a year now. I'm in the Speaking Hall of Fame now, and with Art Linkletter and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Ronald Reagan and Norman Vincent Peale. But one of my favorite speeches ever was a TIE event in Santa Clara. And if you haven't had a chance to see 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 entrepreneurs in a room that looks like the nuclear reactor rods have been raised out of the cooling tank, that's what that's like. And it was interesting because that speech I followed Pablo Hernandez. I don't know if you guys know Pablo. He is one of the most prolific hackers in the world. And of course, I'm in the green room just trying to be frickin' nice to him because, he went out on stage and actually started hacking people's phones from the stage. He's that good. So I didn't want to piss him off, okay? Oh, people laugh. This is funny stuff. We're going to have some good times today. So I also heard when Anand, when he mentioned Trump, should we just get that out of the way right off the bat? That I was a judge for Celebrity Apprentice for 3 years on the show. I'm actually the person who kind of came up with the idea for the show because I was looking to place a product for Kodak and called Trump and got him to put me in touch with Mark Burnett. That's how it happened. I didn't know him and so forth, but then I ended up going on the show. And so we should just get that out of the way. He's a friend of mine, okay? But he is batshit crazy, okay? So totally. But you should get used to calling me ambassador soon. So there. Oh, come on. That's good. That's good. I thought about, what to talk about with you. And I just finished, and if you can hear it in my voice, I just finished 3 days narrating my new audiobook, which is going to be out on December the 3rd. And the book is called The Hero Effect. And I'll talk about how we got there. Because if you think about this from a marketing perspective, look, I was at Kodak. I was at Eastman Kodak in 2006 through 2010 at a real pivotal point. When I stepped into Kodak, over 86% of the entire budget was what I call below the line. So when you look at your marketing budgets and you start taking a look at what's below the line, what's above the line, you want most of your money above the line. That means it's outbound activity that would then drive the programs that you want. But I had 86% of the entire budget. You think, wow, that's a lot. Well, it's a lot when you really think about it because my budget that I managed at the time was a little over $17 billion. Massive, 7,000 marketing people. And when I left, by the way, when I left 4 years later, I'd turned that around and 74% was above the line. But back then was an inflection point in terms of marketing because if you remember, Eric Schmidt coined the phrase about the first day I was on the job of marketing is the last unbastioned area of unmeasured spend. And during that time period, we made a shift where most of the CMOs didn't come from brand, but yet they came from the business. And so now about 90% of the CMOs that we see today in the marketplace are actually coming from the business side, not from advertising, not from brand. So that makes a fundamental shift in the way in which we do it. And today I believe we're at other inflection points. Everything that we're talking about driving with the phone. This is the most personal device there is in the history of the world. Think about it. It used to be your automobile. Now it's your phone. 98% of the time it's within an arm's length of you. If you become detached from it, you start to have heart palpitations. You know where your phone is more than you know where your children are. Think about it. Lose your phone and your kids in the mall at the same time. Which one will you go looking for first? Yeah, think about it. Woman over there goes, yes, if I find my phone, I can call the kids. You know, it's like AI, you know, AI. And what we're about to see then, it's to the point where there's some AI companies that have gotten so good in solicitation that when a friend of mine reaches out to me, I don't know if I'm talking to him or the frickin' bot. Or the things that we're going to see with blockchain and the things we're going to see with crypto. And who would think that that's a cold storage device that holds $116 million that I could readily take apart in a matter of seconds and give you all my passwords and yet know that you could never put it together again. We're at an inflection point. We're at inflection points in terms of technology, but I really think we're starting to be at an inflection point, and I want to drive it home with you today about mindset. Watch what's going on, especially as I was watching last night, just here with the political commercials and the rhetoric and the way in which we are either inclusive or exclusive in the way that we're starting to treat people. We're at turning points. You can see this in your own Facebook feed. In your own Facebook feed, you're starting to quietly turn off people that have an opposing view or who are rude. Hopefully it's for rude and not an opposing view, because that's what this country was built on. And I just got to, as I said, narrating a book of which I take on the issues for companies and for leaders around Me Too, around kneeling at football games or basketball games. And by the way, who's done a better job of that, the NFL or the NBA? Around a host of issues that will turn the tide. And so my belief is we're going to start to watch and see consumers and businesses start to pick sides. And pick sides around the value sets of companies. Value sets. And why it's so important for us to take a look at how we want to be and what do we want to be as a company, because there's a new breed of people who are coming that have access to information in ways that we never had that 15 years ago. And in doing so, it's enlightening us in ways that says, I don't want that. And so we're making delete or undelete selections like that quick, around trust and around alignment. So start to think about how you're going to position your brand and your company. And the brand meaning, not the logo, not the look, not the feel, okay? Because that's not what a brand is. A brand is, it used to be something, where the word brand came from was cowboys like me, okay? From where I live in South Dakota, okay? It's something that we always put on a cow and occasionally we would put on a horse, okay? It was so that when we turned our cattle loose in the open, grazing lands, if I wanted to round them up, which I have to do occasionally, and when I want to round them up, I've got to go looking for them. Well, how do I know mine from somebody else's, or my horses from somebody else's horses? Because I don't know about you, but I got a lot of horses, and I name my horses A, B, C, D. Okay, that's the names of my horses officially on the paperwork, because I can't keep track of these damn things. And so, how do I know? Well, I know because there's a logo on the side of their butts. So it's the identification of ownership on the side of a bovine, okay? Which then became transferred over to the iconic representation of a company. But really, when we're talking about the company, what are we talking about when it comes to brand? We're talking about a promise delivered. So what is your promise delivered? And as you think through this, please understand that you're going to have values tied to it. And you're going to have to learn to be transparent. Let me give you a good example. My television show, which I used to have on Bloomberg, and by the way, I used to have the #1 television show on Bloomberg, #1 for the people that watched, #1 market share, #1 profit, #1 grossing dollars, which I like because I own the show, and the #1 net. I also like that because I own the show. But yet, a third show in, when I had a prime time show on Bloomberg, third show in, I had more people watching me online than were watching through broadcast. And I immediately turned my team and said, get me the hell off the broadcast and get me on digital. So now I have C-Suite TV, which 25 television shows, and we're on Apple, Roku, Amazon Fire. We're on United Airlines. We're on JetBlue. We're on Turkish Air Lingus, just took over WestJet. We're on the cruise lines now. I'm putting content wherever I can find the audience that wants to watch it. Now we also have C-Suite Radio. We have 100 podcast shows, over 5,000. We're the world's largest business podcast network, all as a result of being on broadcast and seeing a trend. Well, my show is called The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett, where I take you into places where 99% of the people who work for the company never get to go. That's in the C-Suite, in the boardrooms of the companies, and I see something that I go like, holy shit, this is pretty cool, right? I just see things. Like one night I'm watching television, and on TV is a commercial that comes on and says, our pizza tastes like cardboard. You remember that commercial? Huh? You remember that? Who was it? Domino's, exactly. And I'm thinking as a CMO, and I'm sure you're doing the same thing, they're running a commercial, and I'm going, who the hell runs a commercial that says our pizza tastes like cardboard? Why would you spend money to tell them that you sucked and you should come and try us again? We suck. We were so bad. We cheated you. We basically did this, and now you should come and see us. So I called the company and said, I want to come and find out what was happening in the boardroom when you made that decision. When somebody raised their hand and everybody's talking about how good we are, we got the quarter report, how great we are, here's the PowerPoint, till we're almost dying by PowerPoints of how good we are, and then someone raised their hand and said, no, we suck. We suck. And not only we suck, we should change our name to more reflect the company, because we don't sell just pizza anymore. We sell all this other stuff. And not only that, we should retool the pizza, and we should bring in world-class chefs and spend $10 million and change all the ingredients and change all the signs. And then let's see if I get this right, Mr. Chairman. You spent $80 million in advertising to go tell people you sucked, and you still have your job. He said, yeah, that's pretty much it. I said, you changed the brand promise of the company. He goes, no, we didn't. I said, yes, you did. He goes, no, we didn't. I said, look, it's my freaking show. Yes, you did, right? Think about it. What was the brand promise of Domino's? They cared more about getting us the box than what was in the box. Do you remember what was their brand promise? 30 minutes or it's free, exactly. Think about it. That's what they did. They cared more about getting us the box than what was in the box, and now they said they're changing that. They're changing that. They were trying to be transparent and saying that this is much different than it was before. We're changing that. And so they went out and advertised it. I mean, think about this. How many of you have called Domino's? Come on. For those of you who aren't raising your hand or making eye contact with me, I know you're lying to me, because you've done it. We've all done it. And what was the first thing we did after we made our orders to Domino's and we hung up the phone? What did we do? We looked at our watch, right? Or our phone to see what time it is, hoping they would be late so that we would get a free shitty pizza. Basically, that was the brand promise of the company. We not only wanted shitty service to get a shitty pizza, right? So we wanted the shitty pizza, but we were willing to take shitty service to get it. That was basically the promise. And they changed it. They told the truth, said we changed it, we sucked before, we're not doing that, this is the difference. And what was the result? Has anybody followed it? It's off the frickin' charts. From day one, the next day they almost ran out of pepperoni. It's a true story. Their stock has gone from 76 cents to over $1, $109. It's one of the biggest rises in modern day business history because they were transparent. Values are changing. Back in 1998, a gentleman by the name of Rob Ryan right down the road, sold his company for $20.4 billion, Ascend Communications. When he sold his company, he gave 10% of the proceeds of the company, the entire gross amount, over $2 billion to all of his employees, making the single largest number of millionaires ever created in one day. It's never been surpassed. In fact, the only biggest tech transaction that's occurred since then, 17 years later, was when Microsoft bought LinkedIn in December of 2016. 17 years. What would happen is Rob went to a restaurant not far away here in Palo Alto. Employees would find him and come to him and they would see him because he was kind of a recluse. And they would say, Mr. Ryan, you don't know me, but I'm the janitor. I can send my kids to college. You're my hero. I'm the night watchman. My mother-in-law has cancer. I can pay for the operation. You're my hero. So Rob wanted to make a change in the way that he was doing business. And his wife, Terry, who was the chief legal officer at the time, did too. So they started up a small group of people, and they could never get it to more than about 20, 25 people to do the exact same thing to start it, and that became the impetus of what we call the Hero Club. About a year and a half ago, I took that club, I took it over, and we built it up, and now it's growing over 400%. We make every single business leader sign a pledge that says you will operate your business based on values. And what we found, and what you'll see in the book, which we'll talk to you about a little bit later, is that those companies that operate with those values, 10, 20, 100, 500 times more in earnings, more in growth than companies that we would call non-heroes. Still good companies. There's bottom liners, companies that you would think that just run from quarter to quarter to quarter. Then there's these companies called do-gooders. They want to do, they're wannabes. But yet they have great values, but they can't run a good business. And then there's these companies which I refer to as asshats, okay? Which they made me change to zeros, okay? And they edited me, but I'm still calling them asshats wherever I can, who just take the money and they run. And so today will be a great way for us to be able to have these discussions about the inflection points, because I think we're on the cusp of it right now. I think we're in a very, very volatile political and socioeconomic climate like we've never seen in our lifetimes. In our lifetimes. Now, some of you come from different varying backgrounds and different countries, so you might see some different things. But at least in the United States and most of the Western world, we are truly at an inflection point in terms of how we operate our businesses and how our customers see us and how the customers will want to do business with us. So today will be a great way for us to frame up those discussions and a great way for us to have some really great open dialogue.